Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Aligned Wellness Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Torrie Thompson. And this week, we are diving into the adrenal glands, adrenal burnout, what you can do to heal them, where you've been led astray because there's so much misinformation on adrenal fatigue, adrenal burnout. And so I want to set the record straight. I see clients all the time that say, oh, well, I just have adrenal fatigue, so I just need to heal my adrenals. That's why I have all these symptoms. Or the worst is when they say, I've been on an adrenal protocol for 2 years now, and I still don't feel great. So we're going to really get into where they went wrong, what to do if you feel like you have adrenal issues, what you need to look at, and what you can start to do to heal. So first, let's dive into what the adrenals are and really what the HPA axis is. So the HPA axis is going to be a critical part of the neuroendocrine system. So the endocrine system is the system that is controlling our hormones, and obviously neuro means brain. And when we think of hormones, people always think of reproductive hormones, but a hormone is anything that travels through the body, through the blood. So you've got thyroid hormones, you've got adrenal hormones, we have reproductive hormones. And so this neuroendocrine system is going to connect the brain to our hormones. And it is going to be responsible for how our body reacts to and perceives stress. So HPA stands for hypothalamus. This is in the brain. Pituitary gland, also in the brain, and adrenal glands. And they're these two little kidney beans that sit on top of our kidneys. Together, they are going to be the feedback loop that controls our cortisol. And cortisol is our primary stress hormone that is going to be released in response to some stressful situation. They also are going to control DHEA, adrenaline, and even some of our sex hormones are controlled by this HPA axis. So step one of the HPA axis is there is some perceived stress or threat. So it could be a physical threat, right? You're being chased by a bear. It can be an infection in the body. It can be a toxin that you just ingested. It can also be emotional. It can be overwhelm. It can be trauma. It can be work stress. So you have two types of stress. And this perception happens in the limbic system, which is going to fire in the amygdala. And this is going to tell the brain we're not safe. Whether you're really safe or not safe is up for just, a discussion. But then the hypothalamus is going to send a signal, and the hypothalamus is the body's master control center. And this is going to send the signal that is going to release a hormone called CRH, which is corticotropin releasing hormone. And CRH is going to travel to the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is then going to release ACTH. And this ACH is going to travel through the blood and go to the adrenal glands. And that's going to tell the adrenal glands that it needs to release cortisol, it needs to release adrenaline and DHEA. So when cortisol is released, think of it as you're being chased by a bear. And it's going to do what your body would need if you were being chased by a bear for survival. So what it's going to do is it's going to increase your blood sugar. It's going to dump sugar into your bloodstream so you have quick fuel, so you could run. It's going to elevate your blood pressure. It's going to suppress non-essential functions. So your digestive system, not important. Reproductive system, not important. Your immune system, not important. This is, you're being chased by a bear. How do you survive? This is going to help. Basically, you're going to just stay alert and stay hyper-focused and have the energy to run or fight or whatever you need to do. That's great if you're being chased by a bear, but the problem lies in current times. We just stay stressed all the time. You're not being chased by a bear. It's work and kids and all the things we have to do and all of the tasks and all of our stress that we stay very, very stressed. What happens is we get stuck in this chronic stress state, right? We're just putting out cortisol and cortisol and cortisol. But once the cortisol enough has been released, say you're being chased by a bear, then what will happen is the brain will sense it and it will tell the HPA axis that it needs to shut off. So this is called a negative feedback loop, basically how the brain is able to control. But that's if it's acute, right? And we just kind of hit on when it's chronic, but when it's chronic, the adrenal glands in the body can't withstand that for too long. So the problem isn't often that the adrenal glands are burnout, it's that the signal isn't stopping. We're keep putting in the input. We have tons of stress in our day-to-day life, and so it causes this HPA system to dysregulate. So this dysregulation can look like high cortisol at night when it should be getting lower. And so it can be feeling wired. People often say tired, but wired, having insomnia, anxiety. It can be when your cortisol gets very flat, right? After a while, we can't maintain that. And so it can be you're just exhausted all the time. Your energy never picks up. It can be low morning cortisol, and that can just be struggling to get out of bed. You wake up and you're so tired, even if you slept for 12 hours. And then high cortisol all day, that can feel very wired, very anxious. You're often going to have blood sugar issues. You're going to have digestive issues. Again, your body is just trying to survive being chased by a bear, but you're stuck there in a chronic state. So initially, when you have high stress times, whether again it's life stress, trauma, or internal stress, you picked up an infection, a toxin, initially you're going to see cortisol high, right? Initially you're going to have these high cortisol symptoms, but after time, the adrenals get tired. They can't keep pumping out that level of cortisol, and that's where you see it getting lower and lower and lower. So initially you start with these high levels of cortisol, kind of that amped, wired feeling. And then it gets low. Then you get to where you're low, you're flatlining, and that's where that exhaustion kicks in. So the HPA axis, it does regulate cortisol, but it also controls thyroid function. So it can downregulate TSH. So high stress, high cortisol production can downregulate your thyroid production. Your sex hormones, your body will steal the precursors from pregnenolone, which makes your estrogen and your progesterone to make more cortisol because it needs to do that. So your hormones will start to get lower. Your gut health will start to suffer. Cortisol will thin the gut lining and it will actually lower your digestive enzymes. Your immune response, high cortisol actually suppresses the immune system. And then we see blood sugar and insulin sensitivity getting all out of balance. People always say, my doctor doesn't say adrenal fatigue and adrenal burnout are a medical diagnosis, and they are not. There is no true medical diagnosis. And if your adrenals were truly burnt out, it would be known as Addison's disease, which is no cortisol. So you're still generally producing cortisol. It's just lower than typically you want. But you're often having this HPA axis dysregulation. And so it's going to start with cortisol that's too high, and then it just will slowly get lower and lower. And that's where you start feeling flat, fatigued, brain fog. Nothing is picking you up. So that's where you can look and you can do hormone testing, a Dutch test, and see what are your adrenals doing. You can look at cortisol, but you do not want to look at cortisol just one time. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they will do a blood cortisol test at just their lab core, which shows their cortisol at that time, but we have no reference, right? So what you want to do is ideally you want to see cortisol at nighttime before you go to bed. You want to see it, so basically around dinner time, before you go to bed, first thing in the morning, and about 2 hours later. So what you can see is what is your cortisol doing over the course of a day, because it should basically, you should wake up, it should then peak, and then it should get gradually lower throughout the day. But if you do one little blood draw, you have no idea where in the cycle you are. So yeah, your cortisol might be within the range, but it has no reference to what is it doing. Are you bottom of the barrel? Are you really high on the scale? Are you flatlining where it's not peaking? So really you want to do I love the Dutch test, but do some sort of adrenal test that's looking at multiple data points to see what is your cortisol and cortisone doing over a day period. So how do we mess up this HPA axis? So there is trauma and there's burnout are probably the big ways we hear about it. So you've got emotional trauma. So this is losing someone in grief, breakups. This is financial stress. This is kid stress. This is, relationship problems. Then we've got physical. So we've got mold, parasites, bacteria you picked up, some toxins, heavy metals. We've got overtraining. We've got, working out in the heat. We've got blood sugar instability. So this is skipping meals. This is fasting for too long. Then you've got, EMFs. We've got, air pollution. We've got all these ways that can be actual burdens on the body. So you have to look at it from a few ways. If your adrenals are burnt out, you have to evaluate your lifestyle. So you need to look at, what is my stress load? What is my stress load? And you are never going to get stress to zero, but what are you doing to manage it? Are you able to manage stress? Or are you someone that's just super high stressed all the time and you're kind of just waiting to crash and burn? So is there things you can do to lower your stress? But what is your stress load? How is your sleep? Are you eating well? Are you getting the vitamins and minerals that your adrenals need to make cortisol and to do their job? What does your gut look like? What does your tox panel look like? What is your childhood trauma? Have you addressed any of that? All of these things have to be looked at, and then you can come up with a game plan of what you can do to start to address it. So, what do we do to heal the adrenals and heal the HPA axis? So the first is we have to get your body to feel safe. So you have to focus on blood sugar stability, right? You can't have these blood sugar spikes and crashes because that is not a safe place for the body. It doesn't know how to manage that. We need adequate amounts of minerals. We need an anti-inflammatory diet and nourishing foods. And we need good routines, right? Going to bed early, waking up at the same time, gentle exercise. We need routine. We need to really focus on balancing our blood sugar through our meals, especially in the morning. You want to wake up and you want to eat within 30 minutes of waking and no caffeine on an empty stomach. I'm going to say that one again because it's so important. No caffeine on an empty stomach. You really want to make sure that you're pairing your caffeine with fat and protein. So you want to have at least 25 to 30 grams of protein for breakfast. I love eggs. It's the easiest way. I'll do eggs and usually some sort of meat that's usually left over from dinner. We'll do healthy fats. So avocados, cooking in butter. Sometimes I'll do some apple and almond butter, but getting some fats, and then fiber-rich carbs. So this can be berries. This can be cooked greens. This can be squash. On days that are going to be a little warmer and I'm working out, I'll add maybe in like a little bit of a gluten-free sourdough, but usually it's only if a workout's right after it. But if you're in a state of adrenal fatigue, you really want to avoid hard workouts. You do not really want to fast. So you want to eat 3 meals per day as your adrenals start to heal. You want to have carbs still in there. So going into a keto diet with adrenal fatigue, not ideal. So you want to have, little bits of healthy carbs. And this is things like Brussels, sweet potato, butternut squash, little bits of white rice, but healthy carbs to help give your adrenals a little extra love. You really want to focus on electrolytes and minerals. And so your adrenal glands really need minerals like sodium, potassium, magnesium. And when your cortisol is off, your electrolyte balance is often going to be off. And so we want to have electrolytes in our water, in our diet. And so you can do things like, Celtic sea salts or minerals, Baja Gold or Redmond's real salt in your water. You can do coconut water. You can do element trace minerals, some sort of electrolyte powder. I will say there's a lot of really junky brands out there. You want something that doesn't have any sugar in it. It doesn't have natural flavors. You want something that's not going to contain, forms that you can't absorb. And so things like Liquid IV and some of the bigger brands I really do avoid. They usually contain sugar and a bunch of junk fillers. Then we have to work on supporting the nervous system. And supporting the nervous system always feels like such a big chore, but it doesn't have to be. And so your HPA axis won't regulate if your vagus nerve is off or you're stuck in fight or flight. And so we have to get the body out of fight or flight, and we have to strengthen the vagus nerve. So things that we can do to do that are breath work. So you can do box breathing, right? You breathe in for a count, hold for the same count, and exhale for the count. You can do things like Wim Hof breathing. I love breath work first thing when I wake up and right before I go to bed. You've got grounding, and grounding is something that always sounded woo-woo crazy out there, but now there's actual data and research that getting your feet on the earth, whether it's grass, dirt, some sort of earth surface, can help really regulate the nervous system. For vagus nerve strengthening and stimulation, you can do things like humming for 30 seconds, gargling water after you brush your teeth, or singing for 30 seconds will help with the vagus nerve. We want to do slow movement. So we want walking, stretching, qigong, yoga, gentle movements. I avoid things like really hot saunas and cold plunging for adrenal people because, again, it's harsh. It is a bit of a stressor on the body, so we don't want to add too much stress, so avoiding those things for now. Where a lot of people come in with the adrenals is they go, I'm just going to take some adrenal supplements. And yes, those can be very helpful, but you have to address all other angles for these guys to work. So we've got adaptogens. Adaptogens help the body respond to stress. So some of the most famous and I think the best are rhodiola, ashwagandha, and holy basil. These help lower cortisol, help boost energy, help the body heal. Then we've got some of the nutrients needed. So magnesium glycinate is a mineral crucial for the nervous system and cortisol. Vitamin C, it gets depleted so quickly by the adrenals when they're pumping out cortisol. Your B vitamins, especially B5 and B6, are needed for cortisol. Phosphatidylserine helps if you're someone struggling with high cortisol, it can help. And then people will jump to glandular, so taking actual desiccated adrenal gland. I'm not the biggest fan of that. I try to use herbs and supplements first so that you can really get the body to do it without putting in actual glandular. We have to get good sleep. We have to have balanced sleep. And so the HPA axis really relies on a circadian rhythm that's pretty dialed in. And so, if you're going to bed at midnight, you're scrolling on your phone, blasting yourself with blue light, waking up exhausted, we've got to work on that. So we want to go to bed early. I'm in bed by 9:30, try to be asleep by 10, but get natural light within the first few minutes, ideally within the first 30 at worst case scenario of waking. And that light in your eyes can really help balance your circadian rhythm. Staying off your phone, off of any blue light device for 2 hours before you go to bed. And if you have to be on them, use blue light blockers. The blue light blockers will help so you're not getting the blue light in your eyes. And then keep your blood sugar balanced. If you're someone really having blood sugar issues, have a snack before bed. That's where getting a CGM can be helpful to track your blood sugar while you're sleeping. I think the adrenal glands are one of the most humbling to have to really allow the body to heal. As someone that has burnt out several times, they take time and you really have to be gentle and patient. And when you're doing that, you really have to pull off of intense workouts. I absolutely love playing tennis. I used to be an avid cycler. I really am an active person. And so really when you have to pull back, it can suck. There's no other way to say that. It could not be that fun. But if you're struggling, really going to gentle exercises, walking, doing yoga, doing breath work, doing, Tai Chi and Qigong, but really gentle exercises. Essentially, you don't want to get your heart rate elevated and leave it there. So, cycling, running, those guys will get your heart rate elevated. And then what will happen is you just kind of hang out there. It might jump up and down a little bit, but you're staying at an elevated heart rate. You do that for 20 minutes and now it's going to pump out cortisol. So you want to get your heart rate, if it's going to go up, you got to bring it down. So if you're going to do something like high intensity interval training, wear something that monitors your heart rate, let it come down before doing your next set of exercises and even keep that to a minimum. But you really do not want to get your heart rate up for a sustained period of time. Gentle is the name of the game when it's coming to adrenal healing. So, things to really look out for how your adrenals are is, do you need coffee to get going? Are you just exhausted all the time? Are you crashing around 2 or 3? Are you really not tolerating stress well? You're very stress adverse. You're waking up in the middle of the night pretty wired. It can be bloating, constipation. It can be no appetite when you're stressed. but all of these guys are signs that your adrenals need a little bit of help. That's where, again, I recommend trying to get a test to see where your cortisol is so that you can go, okay, what is my pattern? Where am I at? And then go a step further. You have to figure out why. Evaluate again every aspect of your life. What is your work stress? What is your home stress? What is your internal stress? And that can be from doing toxin testing and gut testing and all that. It can be, what is my diet like? And when you have all of that data, you can come up with a game plan. You're never going to get your stress to zero, but you can find ways, what can I do to make this less stressful? Or what can I do to downregulate when I get home from work? And that can be things like breath work or meditation or going on a walk with your kids or whatever is a stress reliever to you. But coming up with a game plan, the more data you have, the better. And then you can figure out what needs to change, what foods, what supplements can you add in? Do you need a detox? Do you need to heal your gut? But with all of that data, you can come up with a game plan and get those adrenals healing, and then you can get feeling better. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys next week.